Hold on, let me turn this off.
All right. Back in the game. What is going on? Crucial Squared Circle back in the game. It's been forevers.
What year is it?
2021. Oh my gosh. And if you notice, my name is not Buttfucker 3000 down here. Do you see that?
Buttfucker 3000?
Okay, there's this judge
No.
there's this judge in Michigan. We're not even getting into wrestling off the bat. There's this judge in Michigan who's just like the worst year. Okay, he's had some guy call in who was arrested he was on trial for driving without a license, zooming from the driver's seat in a car. Okay, and then this other guy joins the courtroom, and he's like, the judge is like, "Sir, what's your name?" And he answers, he gives his name. He's like, "Your name is not Buttfucker 3000." He's like, I didn't put that. I don't know how that got there, sir." And he's like, "You can go back out in the waiting room." He's like, you got some nerve showing up in my courtroom with that name on your.
So are you telling me that basically somebody went into actual court and acted like they were going into 7th grade, like art class with a subteacher and just wrote the wrong name?
Oh my gosh. So amazing.
That's pretty amazing. I have almost a little bit of like respect. That's pretty dumb.
Yeah, pretty dumb.
Ballsy. Nice try.
Anyway, we've been kind of delaying this too because we weren't really sure what was going on, but we figure since Zoom is working good enough, we're just going to start this podcast up again. And it's been a year since our last episode, and man, have things changed. Hopefully starting to turn the corner. Apparently you don't have to wear a mask.
That's what I'm hearing.
But I still am. I mean,
I was talking to people about that all day today. Like, I don't know if you ever paid attention, but in Tokyo, Japan, for like at least the last decade, maybe longer, there's been a lot of people who've worn masks over there. Kind of, I mean, not for this pandemic, obviously, but
right, exactly.
It's a crowded area. We cram people into trains. We don't want to give each other illness. Like,
right.
I told a person though, we don't live in Japan. We live in Michigan, USA.
Yeah.
And if you continue to wear a mask once we're told we can't, I wonder how many people we don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we going to be dealing with some 5th grade stuff and people teasing you and worse because you're not wearing a mask?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting month, but I just hope that means less people are starting to get sick and more people are just staying healthy. So ultimately, and with that change, we're getting back into some shows. Wrestling, professional wrestling hasn't really stopped. They had the audience basically cut down. They're letting people back in. And even here on the independent scene, we're starting to see more people come into the fold here and shows starting to return. So that's good news for us because we've been starved.
Totally. Yeah, I've been seeing stuff about shows in other states. I know Ohio was running some shows for the last couple months. I saw some stuff in Indiana. I know everybody's been itching to get back to it. You and I are included.
Yeah.
And it's just been frustrating because it's like, this is my favorite hobby. Always has been.
Yeah.
Especially now that we've gotten included with IPW, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I want to feel responsible. I don't want to like contribute to getting people sick, but it's just been a weird balancing act. So it's nice. It's nice to see it coming back around and get people back in and not feeling endangered or like a turd.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it's been, the last show we had was in March, and that was tough luck in Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. And the tough thing was the unfortunate thing was that's when the pandemic was just getting going and everybody else had canceled. So IPW had this insane show where every member of the DTA was there. Jake Christ, Jimmy Jacobs, Jake something, Hakeem Zane, Malice, Truth Martini. It was like literally an all-star show. And I was like, well, if we're not going to be able to wrestle for a year, I guess this is worth it, And
I remember us talking that weekend too, because that was literally the last weekend before everything just went.
Yeah.
And I remember us talking and being like, we obviously want to do this. And we're still allowed to do this. But I mean, I already felt questionable about it. The flip side though is I'm glad those other shows got canceled because we got like Kalamazoo Superstars version 1 that day. It was crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the cool thing too, is now that shows are coming back, IPW has a chance to pick up steam once again. And if recent events aren't proof enough, it's just getting exciting because, you know, even before Tough Luck, we had this place packed. I mean, there was at least 100 people there to watch this IPW event. So just the storylines, you know, the athletes that were coming in, the wrestlers that were coming in, IPW always has a great rotation of the best talent in Michigan. I was going to say some of the best, but let's just be real. It's just the best talent in Michigan. They come to IPW because they know,
Yeah.
you know, they know they're going to be given a shot. They know they're going to be given a chance, and everybody's been given a chance. Some people have, you know, taken that and appreciated it, and they've worked hard on themselves, and they've been given opportunities, which are well deserved. And you know, new talent keeps rolling in. We keep seeing new talent, and as I was mentioning before, we had our first event at Full Blast in Battle Creek, and you know, it was a nice open to a season. It was pretty soft. There weren't a ton of people there, and we were getting, you know, back onto our feet, so to speak, because after a year and you have these storylines that are huge in IPW, it's hard to like kind of pick up the pieces. And I think IPW has always done a good job of bringing people in and keeping things interesting. And the last one we had is Pandemonium in Paw Paw was proof of that. I mean, that place was, you know, safe, but packed. There was tons of people there.
Yeah, well, and it's just as a concept, like, I don't know how many people realize it, but it's not, the indies aren't like the big like TV league. Like you don't just get one company on the indies.
Right.
And so, you know, the best people hop around and you'll see them at various, you know, places throughout the state, various states. But I was going to say, it's almost like in a band, what you end up doing is looking for trustworthy promoters and good venues.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you could look at it that way for like the most talented indie wrestlers, is they're looking for a promoter and a fed to push them. Let's just call it a venue. I mean, it really is the same vibe.
Yeah, it is.
And it's pretty cool, like in light of very recent events, that not just Kalamazoo, but IPW representing the west side of the state is absolutely being considered one of the main stages, which is a great feeling to be part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I don't think there's any other promotion in Michigan that right now I'd rather work for. I think the people, IPW management is just tops. I have so much fun being a part of it and being able to call the action. And that's what it is. It's all action from the moment the first bell rings to the final bell. It's nothing but action and entertainment and a great time. And it's funny how I've always kind of looked at, you know, society kind of dictates which direction wrestling moves in. And you can kind of see what's happening in society and see that it also in some way affects wrestling as well. And one of the main things that's really a hot topic right now is this whole they don't want to work nonsense, where businesses, multi-billion-dollar industries can't pay their workers a livable wage or offer benefits.
If we're not including video with this is just going to be the audio, then we need to use the words air quote when we're air quoting things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the part you just said, but there was dripping with sarcasm. I don't remember what it was. I saw a meme recently and I really liked it. It said all of this nobody wants to work thing has a lot of the same sting as girls don't want to date nice guys. Like, we don't want to really critique this and figure out why this is happening. We're just going to come up with some snappy logo for it and turn it up. And even today, like earlier, like obviously this has been an ongoing conversation about underpay, inflation in America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But seeing people who are arguing in favor of keeping stagnant pay rates because of their age or being bitter or their own lived experience or whatever, it's just so frustrating because that's how it gets internalized and normalized. And then all of a sudden we've got people in business who are willing to undercut and underpay and
Yeah.
screw over employees. And we see it in every sphere, whether it's a small mom and pop or it's all the way up to billion-dollar industries, like you said. Like,
Yeah. And
let's
I
get
wrote
free
an,
labor.
yeah, and I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, and I don't really, part of my job every day is to write and to let the community know what's going on in and around the area. But sometimes I just get into a mood and I just not really feel like venting necessarily, just trying to put things into a perspective. And I've, I've, I knew I got the info pretty much right off the rip that nobody gives a crap about what I think. And the beauty is, regardless of whether people say they don't give a crap or they disagree with me, at the end of the week, I still get paid. So if I trigger somebody with my opinion, it's a beautiful thing because I know in some way I affected somebody. If
Sure.
it was just nothing, then I'm like, okay, maybe I need to rethink this. But a lot of people were like, oh, you can't just come up with these unfounded ideas and you need to provide proof. And I'm like,
Of
me,
what?
I'm proof of wanting to give, workers a pay raise, and they should be, having a livable wage. And I just kind of, I just kind of laughed because I'm like, what are you talking about? You need proof. I am
Proof?
proof. Like for 16 years, I was
Dude.
underpaid as a kitchen worker and just insulted daily, with the fact that I'm working for somebody who can afford to take their family on lavish vacations to Disney World twice a year. And I can't make over $12.50 an hour. And I'm your top cook, and not only top cook, but also take care of, make sure I'm serve safe qualified, and all that stuff, just going over the top. It was insulting that
Yeah,
this
you know
guy
what though,
was,
Mark? You're lucky to have a job.
yeah,
You
yeah,
should just settle. You should
yeah,
just settle because you're lucky. That's how easy it is for people to dismiss this whole conversation. Just say
yeah,
that and it's over. Like, eh,
yeah.
I
And
made
it's a
that much
joke
when I was
because
a kid. What's your problem?
it was a matter of time. Like I said, it was a matter of time before something happened. And luckily, by the time I got to the job I'm at now, I had a company who provided healthcare for me, and I got really freaking sick. Like right when I moved here, like a half year, 6 months into my living here, I had to have surgery. So it was one of those things where I didn't have to worry because I could have paid time off. And these people just get so overwhelmed. It's not even just work, but it adds so much anxiety and
Sure.
stress into your life. And I find it interesting that once again in life, this topic is coming into wrestling, and unfortunately it's not anything new. And anybody who's been keeping any kind of an eye on Michigan independent wrestling knows that right now there's a whole bunch of drama, which luckily I've avoided. And as interested as I am in the subject, I at the same time don't want to get too close because a lot of people like to get wrapped up in negativity. They like to get linked up in all the drama. And I'm just curious as to what's going on over here. And
Yeah.
I,
It's
I
been,
don't really dabble in the drama, to be honest with you, but I do find it interesting where it's coming from.
I'll occasionally wind up embroiled in drama, but that's because I'm one of those people who will say the truth, whether it's nice or acceptable or not. It leads to conflict. Um, it is weird, isn't it? It's like watching some kind of bizarre, like, family feud splash out all over Facebook, except there's not just one parent in this one. There's like, I can't even keep track of all the moving parts. And it's hard again because so many companies share workers,
Yeah.
like airing out. Well, let's be more specific. Do you know anything specific that's happening? I've heard a couple stories.
There's a lot of underhandedness. There's a lot of behind the back nonsense. And I mean, that's really all I need to say, because that is literally what's been happening. And this isn't, like I said, this isn't just recent. I've been involved in wrestling before IPW, and a similar case happened, and there's just big drama, and it got really ugly. And it it's just bad for Michigan. It's bad for the promoters in Michigan who are doing a really good job of taking care of their talent, taking care of the wrestlers, doing a good job communicating. And at the end of the day, like I said, just taking care of the people who are helping bring you an income, because that's what these wrestlers are doing. They're the ones putting their bodies on the line. They're the
Right.
ones drawing tickets. When I see a fully stacked show, I want to go. That's
This is actually the perfect way to lead into this, because we were talking about this earlier. Anybody who's been paying attention to wrestling, like beyond just watching it on TV occasionally, has absolutely heard the axiom: when you go on the road, you're going to be lucky if you get $10 a handshake and a hot dog, or whatever.
Yeah.
What don't they say, $10 and a hot dog? Something like
Mhm.
that. That's been the joke forever, but it's not a joke. Like, that's kind of been the reality.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you grind and you hope that you're good enough at doing it that you'll raise to more money, and then be able to make a living. But the reality is, I mean, it's got to be a tiny little fraction of people who start to wrestle who actually ever make a living out of it.
Right.
But that just goes to show how much people are willing to give away their labor and work in the hopes of a dream or doing something they're passionate about. And my concern is always that then opens the door for management, whether they're in a bind financially or not, to say, well, then I'm going to undercut you financially because I know you really want this. You want to be here, prove it. And then we see entire, whether it's music, whether it's wrestlers.
Yeah.
People doing internships, people at tattoo shops for a year not getting paid.
Yeah.
We have found a way in capitalism to make people do a lot for very little for a dream and no guarantee. And that's a lot of what I'm seeing pop up. And this thing with the indies, it absolutely touches that.
Yeah, it's really weird too, because like I said before, just being a part of IPW is awesome.
Dude, it's so
because there's one person in particular, and again, I'm friends with, and like you, Davison, I'm friends with a ton of wrestlers on Facebook, and anybody who's got any affiliation in independent wrestling, for the most part, I'd say about 70% of the wrestlers that I'm friends with on Facebook have said something about recent events. And again, that's neither here nor there. I don't know exactly what is going on. I know there's a lot, there's always three sides to everything. There's
totally
two argumentative sides, and then there's just a logical baseline of what actually happened. And
well, I've been thinking about this, and here's what I'll say, because I don't know the specifics. And we can just kind of compare our non-specific points. I'm hearing there are two stories. I'm hearing one of them has to do with a federation having a money man or a sponsorship or something, and then people who are doing the booking. And I believe somebody's accusing somebody of going behind their back and trying to steal the company. That's one of them. Do you even know what the other what's going on with that?
I mean, that's basically what I heard, is that there was trust. There was two people. There was the mind, and then there was the money, and the mind trusted the money. And it turns out that the money went behind their back, and basically Shane McMahon them, so to speak. I now own WCW, except it wasn't a storyline. It was real, and it caused major problems with talent that was flying in. And it's just nasty. And it caused a wave of nastiness on Facebook. And I'm just watching this, and I'm like, what is going on over there? Like, what is happening?
You know what's interesting about that to me, though, is in one conversation, you will hear wrestlers call other wrestlers carnies for like trying to be, trying to con people on money or do this.
Yeah.
And then at the exact same time, they'll talk about the virtue of like looking out for the boys. And I'm like, well, how the fuck can you do both of those at the same time? I just think of it like there are table scraps. It's just like anything else.
Yeah.
The 1%'s at the table eating, then you got 99 fighting over crumbs. It makes everybody everybody's enemy, unfortunately, if you're going to try to, make money. And this is also interesting because we always hear people in wrestling like talk smack about money marks.
Yeah.
You've heard that. Like everybody calls Tony Khan a money mark, right?
Yeah.
Well, so now we're going to say, well, look what happened. This money mark went behind this guy's back and tried to steal the company. Meanwhile, we've got other wrestlers calling each other carnies because they're trying to steal each other's money and steal fans' money. Like it's like one big shell game. That's why it's nice to meet people who obviously have a lot of like, I don't know, credibility and character, and kind of trust them a little bit.
Well, yeah, and like I said, that's why I'm happy to be where I'm at right now because you get to work with the best indie wrestlers that are in Michigan right now, true professionals. Everybody who comes through that door is a pro through and through. They put on the best show. And really on top of it, wrestling, much like other industries, is who you know, the reputation.
Sure.
And doing things that make you look bad and make the business look bad are basically going to be the fall of your career in wrestling.
Pretty
If you
much.
do something that screws somebody over or is really lowbrow with somebody, you're not going to get booked. And that's not good because the entire
Very,
idea is to look good and to be good at what you're doing. And wrestling, you have the ability to go out there and have an epic performance, and all it takes is one person or the right person to see that performance, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, and go, wow, they got something special, bring them in. And it leads to different avenues. You're starting to see, like I said, a lot of people who've been working the IPW shows are on Impact primarily, Ring of Honor. It's just,
yeah.
that's just
Well,
how it,
it's a cool mix though too. It's like a
yeah,
Chinese finger trap. It's like we've got the old indie people. I'm not saying old, but like,
right.
known indie people and big ones. Jimmy Jacobs is huge.
Yeah,
Alex
for sure.
Shirley's been on shows, huge. I think we occasionally will take for granted that we know Josh and work with Josh, but like
Yeah,
Josh is huge.
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Oh, yeah,
So like,
absolutely.
and then it's cool because then on the other end we've got the upcoming people from those groups, and that's where we've got like Jake something, like you said,
Hmm.
Akeem Zane, from Impact.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's really nice to see. It's almost like um, I don't know, it's like we're witnessing the education and handing of the baton at the same time. I
Yeah.
don't know, it's just really cool to kind of be behind the curtain and see it happen that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not to trash anybody else or to, because again, I didn't want to get involved. I saw everybody talking about it and I was like, okay, I have to figure out what is going on because everybody's being super vague. And then I finally found um, a post on Facebook that basically said, okay, here's what happened. And I read it and I was like, well, okay, that's one person's take of the situation. And so that's what I've heard. And so that's how I can basically gauge what these wrestlers and people involved in wrestling in Michigan are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's lots of opinions, there's lots of feelings, but I'm always drawn to people who I really respect and people who I think have what it takes to go to the next level and will most likely be that next level. And, Tommy Vendetta is one of those guys. And he posted something pretty profound on his Facebook. And it pretty much hit home. And he basically said, my 2 cents on all of this is we need to do a better job of weeding out the trash from our business. Not paying the boys, horrible booking, unprofessional work environments, all of this must effing stop. Leave Michigan and ask talent around the indies about us and they will effing laugh at you. Like actually laugh, especially talent who left and don't want to come back. Every time I leave the state and see people, they tell me, get the F out, man. It's a black hole there. When you have a few promotions that can do it right while the others continue to try and bury indie wrestling in Michigan, it's extremely frustrating to the talent, but most of all the fans. Enough is enough already. Clean it up or you're going to drive away everyone and everything from the business in Michigan. This is supposed to be a dream that's fun chasing, and I'm getting back to that with or without you. You want to see me local? Catch me at XI, Chainsaw, IPW, or Horror Slam, maybe MPW. These are the only places I will be at in Michigan until further notice. Other than that, catch me on IWTV. Peace.
Will you list off those feds in Michigan that he'll work for one more time?
Yep. XICW, Mr. Chainsaw, IPW, and Horror Slam. And he said maybe MPW.
So XI is run by the Monroe family in Detroit, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And then Horror Slam leans into like the deathmatch style stuff. I don't think it's solely deathmatch, but it leans that way.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
that's also the Detroit area.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's nice that IPW lands on his list. That's a good feeling.
Yeah. And
well, just real quick, Mark, I want to put this in there. you and I talked and we're like, you know what, we're still relatively new to the scene. Like
Yeah.
we're with IPW, we're announcing, like it's good, we feel solid with that, but we're still new at the table. And this is not our fight. Like this is all East Side stuff. This is Detroit area stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what bothered me, I think I just felt a little almost like offended, is they didn't say Detroit, they said Michigan.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, Michigan wrestling, Michigan wrestling. And I was like looking around like, this is Michigan.
Right.
IPW has
Exactly.
great shows all over Michigan. We don't have any of this bullshit happening. So please start saying Detroit or East Michigan or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, there are people doing it right. And to just rub everybody up into the same shit show of who's doing it wrong, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's human nature. We focus on the majority. And I don't want to say the majority of people are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot more than 4 feds in the state. We'll put it that way. And I don't even know who runs Chainsaw, but I know it's way up there, like in the Kalkaska area.
Yeah.
And I know they've been doing shows for over a decade. And it is a destination for people. So, like, obviously they're doing it right. I don't know. Did you feel that? That's like getting pulled into the drama when you have absolutely nothing to do with it.
Well, and
rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, and I also kind of feel that the East Side of Michigan gets kind of snubbed from the discussion. A lot of times, there's a lot of different people talking about Michigan indie wrestling, and you know they'll promote it because it's happening. But I very seldom see anybody but you and I actually talking about IPW stuff. I mean, that's part of our job. We're the commentary team.
You're talking about the west side of this. Okay, I got you. Sorry,
yeah, there's quite a few people in the Michigan area that cover the indie wrestling scene, and I just see a ton of coverage on what's going on the East Side, and I feel like really we're the only ones really pushing on what's going on over here because, you know, we've got an excellent product over here. Consistently, every single event that's on our YouTube is impressive. Top talent in the state, top national talent coming in from Impact, from Ring of Honor, WWE, you know, all over the place. And, you know, it's just kind of weird when we get looped into the mess, but we don't, you know, the East Side and all these other promotions get this, you know, shout out of success for the fact that they're not trash. We never got
an invitation to dinner, but we're being blamed for it being bad.
Exactly. Right. And I get it. Like that's, you know, we're a bit secluded. Kalkaska is about 2 hours north and everything else is 2 hours east of us. So I get it. There's a lot of wrestling federations on that side. So there's a lot to talk about over there. It'd just be nice to see other people get IPW into the conversation because they're a very reputable promotion. And personally, I think some of the best storylines are happening there right now. And they have been since we
great storylines. You know, let's just touch on this though real quick. So let's step outside of wrestling and just talk about business.
Yeah.
If you went to a town that had 16 corners in it total, small town, and in that town was Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, Wendy's, etc. Are you going to open another fast food restaurant? Like, why would you?
Right.
Go somewhere where there's not fast food or start a different business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to me, it's another interesting part of wrestling. And anybody who's been in pro wrestling for more than a snap of a finger will tell you, everybody wants to be in wrestling until it's time to work for it. And then all of a sudden those people aren't around. So I'm thinking like Detroit's a big area and there's X amount of wrestlers and they get shared. And there's already, God knows, let's say between 5 and 10 feds that run. And people just keep opening more feds. And it's just like, it just goes to show like how bad you want to like own a fed.
Yeah.
But it's totally saturated. You haven't done any kind of like, it just goes to show like there's no real thought to it except I want it. Like I just want to have it. I don't want to do it right.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to have it.
And it's funny too, because you're talking about that competition. And that's exactly like when I replied to Tommy, I told him, I was like, dude, I remember 25 years ago, and there's been documented in this, whether it's Beyond the Mat, it's being an independent wrestler was always like, look at these guys, you know? Right. And now it's like, no, like it's serious business out here. Some of the best wrestlers are in the independent scene. Some of the best product and the most energetic fans are in the independent scene. The script has been totally flipped. And
Mhm. Thank you, Vince.
Tommy, yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, Chief. Thanks, Dick.
No, I'm serious. Thank you
Yeah,
for shitting up the mainstream product so people can start paying attention to the underground again.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And that's interesting too, because he pointed out, he's like, I remember 2 years ago when IPW and another promotion worked to they worked together to have their shows almost one after another, so it'd be almost like a loop, so that you could go and talent could get double booked and it wouldn't be too far away. You could go and have your match, then you go to another promotion, show up there too. It helps everybody else out, and you see a lot of competition.
If they're far enough apart, otherwise you're having your crowd again.
Right,
Right? I mean,
exactly. Exactly. But just in general, he said just the competition of having, oh, I got to have these guys this night and I got to lock it down to it for a prime spot instead of working with another promotion. And I feel like there's a lot of underhanded things that people do that rub the right people the wrong way. And once you do that once, you've already proven who you are. And that's what it's starting to look like.
right. And that's one thing I'll say is wrestling, when done, if it's for money, it's a business,
Yeah.
regardless. I don't know. I think there's something really honest in it. Like, because there's no HR, because there's no due process of hiring or firing.
Yeah.
It sounds weird to say because, I mean, wrestling is inherently dishonest just because of how it's presented. It almost forces honesty, honesty among thieves kind of thing. Show up on time, do your job right, and we'll let you do it again. Burn a bridge, and you're not. And it is pretty cut and dry that way. It's kind of nice, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like I said, it's, I don't get involved in the nonsense. I just know that this was something that was huge. And I'm like, this is nothing new. And that's bad. The fact that this is nothing new and this has happened before and is apparently still happening, where there's a lot of just behind the back stuff. And it's like, no, this is something special. Like Tommy said, this is something special. This is something that we all get to do. And it's never been as great as it is now. And the last thing we want is for all of our favorite wrestlers to go, I've had enough of this, and leave.
Right.
And
I don't think, and because maybe because we're on this side of the state, and unless I'm mistaken, we're the only ones. I mean, have you heard of another Fed on this side? I haven't.
Other than Mr. Chainsaw, but that's in Kalkaska. That's getting towards up north area.
North Central. That's like right between Alpena and Traverse City. Kinda.
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes southeast of Traverse City.
Yeah. So I mean, it's entirely possible that rather than people saying, I'm not going to Michigan, do what Tommy said and go, you know what? I'm not going to go to those feds. Yeah. I'll go to Kalamazoo. I'll go to Horse Slam. I'll go to Ruthless Pro Wrestling in Toledo, and then I'll go home. Like, there's a loop. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know that we'll be affected in the same way because we're keeping our nose clean, because we're far enough away from it, and frankly, because fucking Josh Raymond again.
Right, exactly.
People will want to work with Josh.
Yeah.
I want to throw this in just because it's a funny story. So I've talked about being in independent bands and whatnot, and it's hard. It's hard on any level to be indie. And so you have to hit the road. You have to hope for the best. You have to try and make some money to keep your band going so you can sell some merch, make a little bit of money, whatever. It became pretty common practice, probably like in the 80s, I would think, with the punk scene, but definitely in the 90s and still. Touring bands carry weapons in their vehicle, and not necessarily for self-defense. I've heard multiple stories and witnessed one where I was on tour. Yeah. And we'd been guaranteed money, and all of a sudden the kid didn't promote, and then like 5 people showed up. We've got out-of-state bands, we need gas money and food. And this kid's like, sorry, I don't have any money. Like, how can I pay you? Yeah. And I watched the dude get a baseball bat out of his van and said, we'll follow you to the ATM. And we did. And we got paid. Yeah. And I do not know what happened to that kid after the fact or where that money came from. But we made him hold that deal. And like, we've heard stories like that happening with with old school, like imagine a Roddy Piper being told he's not getting paid when he's in his mid-20s.
Right,
Like, what
right.
the fuck do you think would happen? So I mean, that's that Wild West stuff I actually do kind of get a kick out of, because it's very like Deadwood or something.
Yeah.
But it would be nice for it not to have to be necessary.
Right,
Totally just be,
exactly.
above board.
Because
But
again, you just wasted how much gas, you just wasted how much time.
yep.
Yeah, it's not good.
No,
It's not good. And again, it's not to, and again, that's why, there's no reason to name names, because it isn't important. The people we do name are the people that are important and are valuable to Michigan wrestling. And sorry, but you got to prove yourself. It's called paying dues. You can't just show up and claim that you're legit, and then boom, just like that, trash starts happening.
right. And as much as I said, people are going to be chasing a dream to do the thing, I can tell you right now that I haven't made a single penny doing anything pro wrestling related now or in any other iteration.
Right.
But you've also never heard me complain about it, because it's like,
Dude, you get to be a part of it.
Yeah, but it'll be different if I'm wrestling. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
all of a sudden
absolutely.
I'm taking risk. I'm getting hurt. You and I sit at a table and talk, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And I would do that until I die of old age. I don't care.
Right.
But I'm not, like I said, I'm not assuming risk. So I don't even necessarily see that as labor in the same way.
Yeah.
Now, if we were to somehow get snatched up by a company that was worth $1 million or more, pay me.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's just what it comes down to.
It's like happening soon, probably. But
I've been in situations too where just because I'm doing stuff with IPW, people hit me up like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to be a part of this. And I'm like, I've got a full-time career outside of this. And I'm like, you haven't said anything. Like you're coming up with all these grandeur plans. And I'm thinking, okay, so what are we talking about here? Because like, I'm not doing this. Like,
do you think those plans are being made and then brought to you? Or do you think those plans are being made because people know you and you have connections and a certain amount of like capital?
Both.
Yeah,
both. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Without getting into too much detail, I've literally been asked to brainstorm ideas and to creatively come up with things. And, it's just like, it's great. It's fun to think about, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to, emotionally, I'm not going to fully invest in something unless I'm completely comfortable. And, it is what it is. It's not to say that I won't, help other people, because I'm in that's what I love doing. Part of my job is helping people when other people won't, and using my platform to do that. But it does get to a certain point where it's like, my loyalty is with IPW, and that's where I'm happy. And, if somebody else wants to do business, then okay, I don't mind traveling, but that's when you're, I don't have any loyalty to anybody else. So if somebody wants to do business with me, let's do business. Let's actually do business. I'm not asking for $150, but I'm definitely not going to do what I do for a company that I'm invested in emotionally, for a company that I'm not emotionally invested in and haven't even heard of or have never been a part of. And I think, I'm all about paying dues at the end of the day, because I did it for, basically 10 years in my career to get to a point where I'm like, okay, now I'm comfortable, but
talking about your current career in radio.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, and wrestling's the same thing, where I'm like, hell yeah, paying dues is fun because I get to be a part of it. And that's how it was with radio too. It was like, hell yeah, I get to be a part of this amazing thing on this big scale. And it doesn't matter what I'm making or not making, I'm a part of it. And that's all that matters.
Sure. Well, and the paying dues thing, it has a lot, it's like a hydra with a lot of heads. And so part of it is going to be, let's make sure that you've got what it takes. Part of it could be a weeding out process.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the thing a lot of people don't ever mention is the other side of that coin, which is that dedicating yourself to doing something and knowing you're doing it for the sake of doing it, not because you're being enriched by it.
Right.
I mean, you might be doing it for the future hope or something, but right now there's no guarantees. You're doing it to do it.
Yeah.
That's going to teach you things about your own character, about your own work style, you know, how hard you're going to push yourself. Other people are going to see if you're reliable or not. And I bet you that's probably why we do see some of these people being flaky in these companies ripping each other off. I'm willing to bet you that none of them have probably gone through a process of what we're describing right now.
Yeah.
And so they showed up kind of entitled and looking to do the capitalistic thing. And it's like, well, sorry, you're one of a lot of other people who quote unquote paid dues, and they know.
Yeah.
No, that's not you. You don't have it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like that's paying dues is important because you prove yourself and your loyalty to a company or a promotion. And like I said, just being a part of it is super special. So when I see nonsense going around and I see a whole bunch of chaos and drama, I'm like, what the trash are you doing? What is going on? It's not that difficult, you know, especially when it comes to the logo that's all over my face right now.
Oh, is that what that is?
Oh yeah, that's the IPW. And actually, if I sit right here, I kind of look like Scott Steiner.
I was thinking Santa Claus personally, but
yeah, that's true. Okay,
you do whatever you need to. I'm just gonna keep looking like me.
Okay, cool. No, it's like even with IPW too. You know, there's some huge things, especially in the works for this year and the events that are happening. You know, nothing's been officially announced yet, but I mean, there's a show we're going to have in a couple of months that is just going to be groundbreaking in terms of location and ideology. And I'm so stoked. I cannot wait for them to announce it.
We're not discussing that yet, are we?
No, not at all. So
yeah, that's a big old spoiler.
Yeah.
Let's just say that if we gave people 100 guesses as to what it could be or where it might be, they wouldn't get it.
Nope.
Pretty
definitely
cool.
not.
Pretty weird.
I'd be willing to put $100 on that.
Yeah.
But regardless, you know, big things are happening in IPW. Obviously, you know, last year, Karam winning the world title was huge. He won it over Jack Price. And then over the pandemic, like right before our first event back, Trial by Combat, Karam got injured. He messed his knee up, and I think he had to have surgery. So
he did. And I'm not sure. I don't even think it was wrestling. I think it was like in his training, like in between matches. Like maybe he was like lifting weights or something, but blew his knee out.
Yeah, I think he was in the gym. So we had to figure out something for the IPW world title. So they announced the Grand Prix tournament, which is basically there's going to be 8 qualifying matches. 4 of them have already taken place. 2 of them are actually going to debut this weekend at IPW Pandemonium that's going to be going live. And so we've got 2 qualifying matches, the 2 guys that are already in it, Xavier Walker and Josh Raymond. They actually have to face each other in the first round, which is pretty intense because they're 2 big fan favorites.
I was thinking, because I'm not really sure yet exactly who's all going to be included in that tournament, but seeing those 2 names, I could have very easily seen that as the final.
Yeah, it's and so if that's any kind of sign of what this tournament's going to be like, it seems like it's going to shape up to be pretty freaking strong. You got to imagine some big timers like, you know, I feel like maybe Tommy Vendetta could get in on it. I feel like, and you know, all personal stuff aside, regardless, you can't really deny the success and win-loss record of a couple of people like Derek Wolf. You got to look at Felix Morio. You know, Felix Morio too. He's got a really impressive win-loss record too. So
he really does. He's that unassuming guy at the party who never talks, and then all of a sudden he grabs the mic and just sings opera. Like, how the hell is Felix Morio such an overachiever? Like, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. He's got a pretty good win-loss record. Also, Roger Lanier, too. He's another one that's, I think he's undefeated. He's undefeated still. Yeah, he's undefeated in IPW. So you got to imagine he's going to be at least in a qualifier. So, but but yeah, there's a qualifier, and obviously we won't give away the winners, but there is a qualifier. There's 2 qualifying matches in IPW Pandemonium that's coming up soon. And that'll only be half of the wrestlers. And we've got the next event that's coming up at the end of the month, and it's actually going to be at the M40 Speedway. It's IPW Back on Track. We know Jamal King is going to be there for sure. It's on the 29th.
I'm going to knock on a little bit of wood on that. We've known that Jamal King's going to be there for sure, like 4 times now. So,
I mean, Derek,
let's hope that we get Jamal King this time.
Yeah. I mean, Derek was kind of shooting off about that, and we're curious if he's actually going to make, because you got to imagine he's one of the biggest names in IPW. I mean, right now he is the champion up in Kalkaska. And he has
been for like 2 years or something, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why it's such a big deal. Anybody who doesn't know Jamal King, he's been chainsaw champion for quite some time now. So he's top dude up there, big guy, super athletic. And I that's something I'm starting to see. The top dudes in Michigan are going to have this shot. You almost got to wonder too, even though it wouldn't really make a whole, like, I mean, again, win-loss record. If we're going by win-loss record, the top guys in the federation, you also got to look to the leader of the Death Threat Army, Aaron Orion, if he gets a shot.
I'd thought of that, and I can't think of any reason why you shouldn't be allowed to. And I can't picture Josh being somebody who would say, well, you're already one champion, you can't fight for another. So, I mean, it would make sense to me. Why not? He's literally the number 1 guy in the company right now.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. We don't even know, like I said, we know what matches have already taken place. Obviously Josh and Xavier won. There's 2 qualifying matches at Pandemonium, which will be out soon, that you'll get to see who won, who advances into the quarterfinals. But yeah, only 4 winners so far have made it. And so now I'm wondering, man, what are the other 4 matchups going to be? And we also found out too that there is going to be another women's match at Back on Track, and whoever wins that is going to face Randy West for the IPW Women's Championship.
Spoiler alert. Randy West?
Yeah. Dirt.
Well, let's just go ahead and say it. Randy West did win a match at Pandemonium to qualify to have that match.
Right. Exactly. Well, Randy West she's a legend in Michigan. I mean, not only just a hardcore deathmatch legend, but I mean, she's the first trained woman to come out of the House of Truth. She just turned 40 today, I think. So, I mean, she's still killing it. She's in great shape. Not only that, but like her match, I mean, it kind of stole the show, honestly. I mean, we could say, she wrestled at Pandemonium and she's going to be fighting for the women's title, but really the match is the gold. I mean, that is probably one of the most entertaining matches from the whole night.
As far as just calling matches, it's fun to call matches anyway.
Yeah.
But that was really fun. Who did she fight? Thunder Kitty?
Thunder Kitty, yeah.
The most dangerous grandma in the world. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a really fun match.
I didn't realize Randy West was such a friggin' legend in the deathmatch community for a while. She actually had a massive injury and was told that she would never wrestle again, and didn't for many years. And I don't think IPW was her first show back, but I think she's only been back for maybe like a couple months.
Wow.
And then I know that she's also married to a guy who's getting well known in the Midwest. His name's Schwartzy.
Okay.
Wrestles down in Toledo quite a little bit, and was wrestling in Detroit. They're married and they own a place called Flophouse Wrestling in Indiana.
Gotcha.
So yeah, she's deeply plugged in.
That's cool, awesome. Yeah, it really is. And again, if that match is any sign of what's to come, and again, we mentioned it on the event too, is that, women's wrestling is just as athletic and just as entertaining as men's wrestling. And that's why I just kind of look at it as it's just wrestling. Women's wrestling is finally starting to be appreciated. And I mean, it's funny because I saw, it could have been sarcasm, but I saw slight criticism on video of when, people were previewing that match and they were kind of like, like someone was like, that's going to be a good match. And someone's like, yeah, you sure about that? and I didn't know if it was sarcasm or if like it was like an inside joke or if he was just making fun of him, but it was just
Wait,
very.
where was this? Was it at the show?
No, this was somebody else in Michigan who covers independent wrestling.
Oh God.
So I was like, huh, that's interesting. And so I made sure to let them know, hey, just a heads up, that match was the most technical match we saw that entire night. Just a heads up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So like, let's just take sex and gender out of the thing for a minute. If I see a couple of dudes who weigh close to 300 pounds and they're ripped, I would expect power slams, press slams, suplexes, right? If you show me a couple dudes in masks who weigh between 130 and 200 pounds, I'm going to assume there's going to be a lot of flips and stuff happening. Like, I think people still think of women wrestling. They just think of glow, or they
And
think of like,
hair
or
pulling snapmares and
freaking. And then McMahon didn't do anybody any favors by turning
um,
everything into bra and panties porn in the freaking 90s. Like, that didn't help.
yeah.
But so again, if we just take sex and gender out of it, if you're not strong enough to do a press slam, you're not doing flips, what are you going to do? You're going to technically wrestle and you're going to brawl.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we got. It was badass.
It's probably in terms of uniqueness, probably the most holds any match had that entire night. Easily.
For sure.
And
And the most knee-high kind of dirty socks with brown stripes on them.
oh yeah.
That was
Can't miss
that
out.
was the most in any match I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was a stellar event, and they just keep getting better, honestly. That was a one, downside from last year amongst all the other downsides, and one of them was how much steam IPW was catching with fans in storyline, and everything just kind of slammed to a halt. That show had tons of people there, and they were active, they were loud, they were into it, and that just shows you what IPW is doing is working.
100%.
People are committed to it big time.
Yeah. And it's been interesting too, because everybody's been locked up for such a long time. So people are going to jump at the opportunity to get out and do something. I think since this next show at the end of the month, the 29th of May, is that right?
Yeah.
M40? Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that it's going to be an outdoor show, I don't think there'll be as many nerves from people either about being in an enclosed space together. Based on the way these last two shows have gone, like I'm expecting a pretty decent turnout.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm curious. We don't have a matchup lineup yet. We've rumored Jamal King's going to be there, rumored that Xavier Walker is going to be there again, Aaron O'Ryan. Apparently there is going to be another women's match to qualify for the women's championship, which is something that we were even talking about too on commentary, that, Heidi Katrina, obviously she'd be in the running, but she's stuck overseas right now. We don't even know when she's going to be back.
Well, that's what makes this awesome, because really what that says to me is whoever wins this tournament may be the inaugural women's champion.
Yeah.
But really the showdown is between who wins this tournament and Heidi fucking Katrina.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, just based on what I've seen so far, Heidi Katrina wrestling Randy West would be pretty friggin' interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I really do want to catch this next match, and that way we'll be able to see, okay, who goes home with the win. And on top of that, what's this matchup going to look like? And
right.
What's it culminating to? Like, cause like I said, there's rumors about this IPW World Championship, about how it's going to be determined, how this tournament is going to go, when it's going to be held. Nothing's officially been announced yet, but again, things are getting really, really big in IPW. Again, I'm excited to see where we're going to go from here.
Yeah,
we got
100%.
two new championships we're going to introduce. Aaron O'Ryan just keeps steamrolling through people when it comes to the Michiana title. I mean,
sure does. It's weird too. Once you've had somebody hold the title that long, especially in the modern era, where title rounds are usually between like 2 months and maybe 6 or 8.
Yeah.
He's going on, and of course the pandemic's going to inflate the length of these title reigns. But,
yeah, true.
I mean, it's been years, literally years. So it's like, on one hand, how do you ever bet against the guy? But then on the other hand, it's the modern era. You don't hold titles forever. So it's like every match he has, I'm not betting against the guy, and I'm not hoping against the guy.
Right.
I'm excited to see something new, and it'll definitely be interesting to see who finally knocks him off. You're a cheeseburger. Look at
I'm a
that.
cheeseburger.
Hey, I'm a cheeseburger.
Hey, forget about it. So, but
Um,
yeah, like to that point, just look at who he's defeated. Josh Raymond, Hakeem Zane, some Zach guy, um, Ren
Zach, I
Jones.
haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
Ren Jones.
Just,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, all four guys who top of their game at that point
100%.
in time.
Absolutely.
It's insane. Like he just cannot be defeated. And you know, DTA, like we said, they play that numbers game, but at the end of the day, you got to know who you're going up against. You're not just going up against Aaron O'Ryan. You're going up against DTA. They're going to make sure that that dude is leaving with the title. And so you got to have your head on a swivel. You got to expect everything from these guys. And unfortunately, it's just been, I think the pressure is just mounted too heavily on some of these dudes. And Aaron O'Ryan, he's just,
that's one of the things I'm really interested to watch in 2021 in IPW specifically, because DTA again does get shared across all these different feds, like we were saying.
right.
In IPW, they have been running this mug with an iron fist.
Yeah, yeah.
But we have absolutely seen fissures. Jack Price losing the title. No, it started when they dropped the tag titles to the Gray Wolves in the first place.
Yeah.
We saw Aaron O'Ryan kind of running them down, and then Jack Price drops the world title. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, all the gold turns into one guy holding the gold, and he's looking at everybody else going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, exactly. And the tag titles are going to be really hard to get off because we saw a tremendous match for the tag titles at Pandemonium. And you're talking about two big tag teams, pardon me, in Big Facts. They actually made their IPW debut at Trial by Combat. They almost beat Tommy Vendetta and Alex Weir. And then at Pandemonium, they got to go up against, you know, Gracefully Chosen, who, I mean, those dudes are just out of the House of Truth. They're just phenomenal. So the tag title match between those two teams is just incredible. Cannot wait for you guys to check that out. But
it's easy to say this, and everything's hyperbolic when we're trying to sell things. But of all the teams I've seen in the last handful of years on the Indies, I'm going to say that we're lucky to have Gracefully Chosen, and I don't expect to have them forever.
Yeah, exactly.
They're really, really good. They look fantastic. They're both good on the mic. They're both great individually. The tandem work, like they've got everything. They got everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
So we're lucky that we get to be a part of this, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And this year is going to be huge. Like I said, it was big last year. It's getting even bigger this year, and just excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. You know, it's exciting. I'm sorry, I'm getting like whited out. My window's open over here.
Oh, you're good.
There we go. It was interesting because you and I kind of started doing our own wrestling training during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their weird glow ups coming out. You know, we're coming out training to people on wrestling all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But so like talking to Josh, talking to Terry, who helps run things in IPW, and it's like you can't have shows. We're talking like last fall into early this year.
Yeah.
How do we keep these? You know, how do we keep people motivated? How do we keep the fans motivated to be paying attention? How do we keep the performers motivated and like keep the ring rust off of them? And so we had a lot of conversations about like, do we start? I joked about starting an OnlyFans page for IPW.
Yeah.
Not for sexual content, but just because it's kind of funny.
Right.
But we talked about starting a monetized page and selling subscriptions that way. We talked about filming like empty venue type stuff. The same stuff a lot of other companies are trying to figure out how to do.
Yeah.
It was weird for me watching pro wrestling start to run shows in empty buildings. It took a minute to adjust to. Did you? I don't know what you were doing with wrestling over the break. Have you been watching much like empty?
No, unfortunately, I mean, I don't really mess with cable, and I don't have any of the streaming sites. Luckily, they keep everyone pretty well informed over social media. Luckily, they can monetize that. So that's basically how I've been keeping track of everything. But even still, just seeing some of these matches in empty arenas and even watching, going back to last year, watching WrestleMania, and they had like just nobody in there. And it was just really weird. It really strange.
Well, WWE was the most strange, and it's kind of what me, you, and T had been talking about week after week
Mhm.
from before. If you taking a Ring of Honor show and putting it in an empty building, now all you can see is what are these people doing in that ring?
Yeah.
Awesome things. Now let's take Braun Strowman and put him in an empty building and have him wrestle against Baron Corbin. There's no pomp and circumstance. There's
Yeah.
no huge crowd. There's no special effects. And now we see what they do. And it sucks.
Yeah.
So, like, it was really interesting. It just proved what we already knew. WWE is like a sliver of wrestling, and then it's a whole lot of presentation and bells and whistles. So it was pretty cool. Like, I know I've talked to you before, but I really got heavily into Lucha Underground early
Yeah.
in the pandemic. And I wound up watching the entire series, kind of binge watched it. There's talks of that kind of getting revamped and working with MLW, Major League Wrestling. That's Court Bauer's company. They just signed a contract and they're airing on Vice TV now every single week.
That's interesting.
Court Bauer has history of working and writing for WWE, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
When Triple H said that WWE was open to working with other companies, which we all know is a lie. Come on. Well, then we've got Kenny Omega jumping all over from Impact to AEW, JPW, to AAA. And then Triple H says, we're willing to work with other companies. Well, they scooped up Evolve, bought them. That's not working with other companies. That's buying them, making them Vince's, which he's always done.
Yeah.
But now they're talking about the possibility of a working relationship between MLW and WWE. And that might make some sense. We'll see. But what I do know is MLW is scooping up some of the main players and even storylines now from the Lucha Underground stuff from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Lucha Underground didn't get a lot of attention. Come on, I don't know how large our reach is with this thing. I wish everybody could go back and watch at least a couple of their shows. They always did in one place, so I had a little bit of that Impact Zone vibe.
Yeah.
It felt much cooler. But they were doing like Hollywood level cutscene, like 5 to 10 minute films in between their matches. And they had Robert Rodriguez, for God's sake. He's the guy that did that split film with Quentin Tarantino back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, the big director. He was one of the main producers, and I think he probably helped direct some of these skits for the show. So it was
That's wild.
Super professional. The matches had like the top indie talent from America and Mexico. They had great distribution. But so like now we've seen the cinematic matches make their way to the majors. We've seen the Stampede match. We saw The Undertaker and AJ Styles.
Yeah.
You know, et cetera, et cetera. That stuff really did kind of get launched from Lucha Underground. And now some of that stuff is looking to pop back up in MLW. So I'm personally really stoked about that happening. But yeah, as far as WWE goes, watching them in an empty building sucked. I hate Vince so much that I basically stopped watching the product anyway.
Yeah.
When they sold the network to Peacock, I realized, well, Peacock just paid $1 billion for this. I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, there's no residual. So Peacock dollars aren't still going to Vince. They already gave Vince the money.
Yeah.
So I decided I am going to revisit Peacock. I am going to watch NXT. I kind of grappled with that. I hate Vince a lot, but I love all of these wrestlers who work for him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make Vince go out of business by not watching him. I want to see these people. And now I have the way to watch them without paying Vince. So that's been a nice little loophole.
That was the big thing for me. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting money into Vince's pocket by doing this.
He's the worst.
Just unreal. It still continues.
While we're on that spot, let's come back around to the first thing we talked about, which was undercutting, underpaying, or ripping off talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you pay attention. I watch MMA, and I pay a little bit of attention to other sports, not watching them, but I just like to compare salaries and things like that. I don't know. So it's been interesting to me. So I started hearing about percentages of income to, like in the NBA, for example. We hear about these players signing contracts for like 5 years, $100 million. That seems insane. Well, that's because there's a worked out deal where NBA team owners have to pay their players a fixed percentage of all of that team's income. So there are guarantees of high pay based on how much money that team can make. And it's set in stone per these percentages. There have been some arguments with Dana White with some of the fighters. And I think that Jorge Masvidal was the big one who's coming out and saying NBA is paying something like 30 or 40% of their income to these players. And breaking it down for UFC, it was less than 10%.
Jeez.
So they're arguing for that. Now, the things we've heard about WWE and these huge profit margins they're making, and they continue to make more money. The products go like this, and the profits are going like that. You tell me. But then if you break down the percentage of payout to those entertainers compared to the huge money coming in, it's the worst of all. It's not even worth comparing. It's not even worth comparing. So like the argument in pro wrestling, I think, is important for that factor. Because, okay, great. There's some wrestlers who make a ton of money, but they kind of incur more risk than I would say. I don't know. MMA doesn't have the kind of concussions that wrestling has.
Right.
NFL used to. Like, there's a lot of injuries across the board, but in my book, if you're literally risking your life, make $100 million a year if somebody will give it to you.
Yeah.
By all means, you're risking your life. I don't know. I don't think Vince has any excuse. It'd be hard to find an excuse for how he rips these people off. You know what I mean?
There's no excuse for that guy.
I'll never feel good about it. I can't. I don't know how to.
I was telling my friend, because we were watching Dark Side of the Ring, and they're like, oh, well, they I think, which one were we watching? I can't remember which one we were watching. I think it was the one about, the old one. I think it was the one about Benoit. And I can't recall, but they were like, yeah, it's like, oh man, it almost seems like he's got a heart. And I was like, yeah, that's a show.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. I was like, he is technically a human being, but
well,
and it's
like I was saying from before, he's a human being who's got his own track record and trauma from his early life.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff we've talked about with him displaying certain decisions and behaviors that seem to be informed by mental illness as opposed to business acumen. I still listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts. I'm probably never going to, I'm just a nerd. I just like wrestling. Listening to Bruce Pritchard do his podcast versus listening to Eric Bischoff do his podcast. And both of them do it with Conrad. So it's a very similar format. They're night and day. Because you hear Bischoff, who was running WCW.
Yeah.
And he is a strongly independent businessman. I like Bischoff's personality.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to work for him, but I think he's an interesting guy. You listen to him talk and it makes sense. You listen to Pritchard talk and I've started asking myself recently, did he learn to talk in circles like that from Vince, or did Vince learn it from him? Because Conrad will say to him, and this is another one recently. God, what was it? Something about, Michael P.S. Hayes had to cut his hair and shave his beard when he came into WWE to be, what do they call him?
Doc Hendricks.
They made him do that because Vince doesn't like beards. Okay, well, great. Then we'll just shave his face. I don't like long, stringy hair. All right, well, then we'll cut it. I don't like his name. All right, well, then we'll change it. It's like, we're going to change everything like we always do, right?
Yeah.
But the story was that Bruce was saying, I just happened to have a stylist on hand. Just happened to. And when Michael came in for the conversation to see if he was going to get hired, I said, well, Vince might want you to cut your hair. Said, oh, well, I'll cut my hair. He's like, great, I'm glad you said that. Let's go upstairs. Like he's just going to spring it on him, right?
Yeah.
And he's laughing while he tells the story. And Conrad goes, you know what? You're a real asshole, man. You know that? Like he's going to set people up and trick them into getting a haircut. Like just admit it. Admit that you enjoyed tricking him into it. And Pritchard goes, trick him into what? Getting the highest paying job he's ever had? That is the problem. That's the whole problem. Because then if I say, okay, Bruce, you and Vince have hypersexualized women in wrestling for the last 30 years. You have made it almost impossible for women to wrestle without being seen as porn stars. He would say, Oh, so you're saying we should have never given hundreds of millions of dollars to these women in massive platforms that help launch their careers into acting and modeling? Is that what you're telling me?
Right, right. Yes, that is what we're telling you.
And I'm
It's just
like,
like,
it's just so circular. And if it wasn't in wrestling or if it wasn't in entertainment, and I was just seeing that with my clients in therapy, I would say that is toxic, manipulative language use right there.
yeah,
Like you're intentionally manipulating the situation.
so
So I'm
bad.
listening the other day, and Bruce Pritchard says, Earl Hebner, Dave Hebner, the twin referees, we've talked about that on the show before. When Hulkamania was running wild, they got the title stolen by
Yeah,
the Giant. We had these Hebner twins, plastic surgery, the whole thing. Well, apparently they put together a package to show what was leading up to this main event on one show. They're backstage having their meeting for creative, and Vince goes, you know what? I got an idea. Let's do this. Bruce says on his own podcast, this went directly against the package we were showing. It went directly against the whole planning for the angle. It totally undid one of the pieces of like the reveal for the story already. And Bruce was like, Vince, are you sure? Because that's going to do these things. And Vince said, nobody will notice. Finally.
right.
Like I've been waiting for 25 years or more for some evidence. Like we all know it. He insults our intelligence every time you turn the show on.
Yeah,
To finally hear one of his guys say it, he doesn't think you'll notice. Awesome.
unreal.
It's not surprised, but it was great to finally hear it, man. Like, good.
It just blows my mind. And again, you think of the politics of everything, it seems really weird when especially I think the one that subtly messes me up the most is the Bruiser Brody episode, and the fact that years later he's inducting Carlos Colon in the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm like, he's accessory to murder to one of the most hardcore, probably the most hardcore wrestler ever, other than Abdullah the Butcher and Mick Foley. He's
You
like,
know what? This is the first time I've ever considered it that way. Him being an accessory to murder. I mean, people hear that and they might think we're saying that he held his arms while he stabbed him to death or something. I'm not saying that. But I mean,
I just look at what Tony Atlas said. Tony Atlas, regardless of how you view him or look at him, he was there. And that episode was the first chance in years, in over 30 years, that he got to tell exactly what happened. And there's a lot of politics there, because you look at who took over after Brody, because Brody, when he got down there, was like, I've been waiting years to get into here. And he met as a promoter, and like he told Tony Atlas, he's like, you're going to start seeing some changes around here. And he beat the trash out of Jose Gonzalez, who openly said, I'm going to kill that guy one day. And then stabs him. He eventually gets convicted. And then they say, well, he's not guilty. It was self-defense, because they thought it was real. They thought Brody was really this crazy maniacal dude, and he attacked him.
but here's the problem. Brody did those things. That's
Yeah.
the problem. Is he did beat the living shit out of people in matches without their permission. He did these things. So it's like,
and they thought it was real.
It's hard to say something's a ridiculous accusation when it's happened.
Right, right. But it's
I don't know, man. It's
the fact that everybody was giving a different account except for the dude who was holding his guts in his body says a lot. And you see, I don't know, I've watched interviews with Carlos Colon when they talk about it, and he's very, very passive. He's like, because again, not like, double jeopardy or anything, but it's like you say something and it's not in line with what you've said before, you've revealed yourself as a BSer. And anytime anybody wants to talk about it, he's super passive. Like, I don't want to discuss it. No. And it's just very like, I don't know. It seems very interesting that there are two people who were in that locker room at that time. And one of them is very vocal about what happened. And the other one, who is in connection with it, allegedly is very passive and like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. You would think that they'd want to stick up for their friend and say, no,
Well,
that's
it
not
makes you
happening.
wonder. That's a good point, though. It makes you wonder who's friends, though, because maybe Carlos did stick up for his friend.
And that's just interesting because Dutch Mantel ended up taking control of Brody's share. So Dutch and Abdullah the Butcher both had stock down there.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
I don't remember that
So
part.
it's just, again, I'm not accusing anything. The fact of the matter is Jose Gonzalez killed him. And that's a proven fact because he was found not guilty for self-defense. So they concluded that he did in fact kill Brody, but that it was self-defense.
Was it you or T who said that that dude can be hired to come to kids' birthday parties?
Yeah. He does. He retired in 2019. I think he's like 75 or 77. I can't remember. But yeah, he gets hired to go to birthday parties and stuff. And that's just what's really weird about it to me. The whole thing is just that, I don't know when especially the fact that when he knelt down, like when Brody got stabbed, he had a picture of his son in his hand and a bag in the other. And that's just not the way you come at somebody if you're going to try to hurt them with a picture of your son in one hand and a bag in the other. It's not a very tactical weapon choice.
Well, you've clearly never paper cutted somebody's jugular with a card of some sort and then choked their ass out with the handles to a bag.
And even like the Superfly Snuka is super suspect. The fact that he says, wait here, walks into an office with a briefcase, walks out and said, let's go. You're fine. Nothing happened.
This is what gets me, dude. And you've heard me go off on this before. And unfortunately, it's usually attached to like rape accusation or something else. Show me the proof. And Americans like to point at the judicial system, even when we're not having legal discussions. So sometimes we're having moral discussions or ethical discussions about humanitarianism.
Yeah.
They'll still want to deflect to legality. Well, if you can prove he did that, then I'll listen to you. Some things don't have proof, and a lot of things don't require it.
Yeah.
We're not idiots. If there's two guys in a room and one walks out covered in blood with a knife in his hand, you did it, probably, unless there's like holes in the ceiling where somebody else came in.
Yeah.
Don't tell me there's no.
Exactly. And they're like, they never found the knife. And it's like, but like, what it's a very simple thing. There was 4 guys back there.
The thing that bothers me almost more than that, though, is he never went to prison on it.
Yeah.
Which technically means he's not a convicted murderer.
Yeah.
Which means he's not a murderer, which means he can come to my kid's birthday party. That's what gets me. It's just like, you're just going to overlook. I don't care if he's 75 years old or 125. That's still a person who decided to kill another person, man.
Well, and especially, and it's not even just the accusations too, but it's the fact that Tony Atlas came back to the arena and Savio Vega, who showed up as, I can't remember what his wrestling, his name was back then, but Savio Vega showed up and was like, hey dude, don't go in there. They're looking for you. And he's like, who's looking for me? And they're like, they're looking for you because you're talking. You're telling, like, you're telling the truth, basically. Like, you're telling them what you saw, what happened. They're in there looking for you. Yeah, Savio Vega and Tony Atlas in an interview said, that's why every time I see Savio Vega, I shake his hand because he saved my life. They were looking for me. They were going to kill me because I was telling everybody what happened.
You know what I was thinking, though, too? And this is, it didn't happen in America. And if it had happened in America, there would have been a different process, probably.
Oh, yeah. They got subpoenaed after the trial.
But so in America, just on paper, that sounds like one of our beloved white guys got stabbed to death by a brown guy. And that's a no-brainer in America, whether the brown guy did it or not, he did it, right?
Yeah.
Well, so in this example, we've got a couple of brown guys who may or may not have killed a white guy. And the only guy who saw it and can really talk about it is a brown guy. That makes me wonder if that didn't affect Americans' ability to, like, believe or take the story seriously
Right.
on like a subconscious level, just based on not trusting the witnesses as being non-white. Like I
Yeah.
never really thought of that before, but that always factors into things. And this happened on a brown island with some brown guys told by another brown guy. And we just never got to the bottom of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just super, at the end of the day, it's just super unfortunate because
yeah.
Brody was, you watch that tape and there's a guy who just, you know, it's really unfortunate because you got like, there's some behind the scenes clips and he's talking just as himself as Frank. And you see how passionate he is for the industry and the business. And unfortunately wrestling politics ended up being his death, you know, and probably some violence as well, obviously. You know, the fact that he had dude's head swollen up like a pumpkin didn't help. But
I don't know.
but again, it's another tragedy that's claimed countless amounts of lives in the world of wrestling.
Well, you know what? And I don't think he would mind me saying this because, I mean, he's come on the show and made fun of kayfabe himself. But Josh has said at countless training, like at practices, I don't know about you, but I don't like getting punched in the face. And so he trains his people to like do it the right way. Like,
Yeah.
make people think you're killing people without hurting them. In fact, if you could do it without even touching them, that'd be tremendous.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have to kill somebody in here. And he's proof. There's a lot of people who are proof. Bret Hart's proof.
Yeah.
Right? What we also know, though, is people will pay. It's almost like a throwback to the gladiator days. People pay big money to go to a UFC event, thousands of dollars for a seat. We want to see guys almost kill each other for real. And so Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen's another one. Vader's another one. There's a bunch of them. Like, okay, we know that this is supposed to be a show, but we're really going to beat the living fuck out of somebody in there. And they got paid big money for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they
so
they put themselves in serious danger and
they
pain.
Sure did. But it's interesting. It's like, that's one of those things with wrestling. You get trained to do it this way, but then you see where the money goes. So I'm going to try to do it that way. If I do it that way, I might get fucking murdered for it. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I guess I'd probably rather get a little underpaid than be turning people's heads into pumpkins and potentially get stabbed to death somewhere.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it's, you know, to me, it's just, I just look at it for what it is. 4 guys in a locker room. One got stabbed. One did the stabbing. One saved the dude who got stabbed, and one pulled the dude doing the stabbing away. I mean, the fact that Carlos Colon sits there and acts like, no, I don't want to comment. I don't want to make any kind of, no, I'd rather not talk about this. You know, it's like, well, did he stab him or not? And was he going to stab Jose with his gym bag or the picture of his son? You know, and and then the fact that Vince is like, yeah, you're in the Hall of Fame because you're a legend. And it's like, but we're just going to forget all that.
Well, yeah, because Vince is the one who paid all that money to get Jimmy Superfly Snook off of a murder rap. Of course, Vince is going to put him in the Hall of Fame. Like, yeah, he's the exact guy who would do that.
It's just, like I said, it's just, it's very confusing. It's very confusing. It's a crazy industry we're dealing with. It's supposed to be super fun, and shows like Dark Side of the Ring are compelling because, one, it really opens you up to the world of wrestling you never really knew about, or that you heard about and you don't really know too much about. And then at the same time, you really, really get to appreciate the fact that it's not like this anymore. And hopefully people are going to be, wrestlers primarily, are going to start being taken care of, like really taken care of, so that shows like these don't have to be made in another 40 years.
And I think it's a really great thing they're doing. It's not anti-wrestling by any means.
Right.
But it does show all of the blemishes. It shows the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And I think that is important. Not just for like the standard viewing audience, but maybe more so for like young people who are romanticizing wrestling as, I'm gonna go do a bunch of flips and make $20 million. And it's like, well, yeah, hopefully, but here's a bunch of other crazy shit. You might get addicted to drugs. You might kill somebody by accident. You might be in a bar fight and get beat up by a bunch of Marines like Shawn Michaels did.
Yeah.
might have to kill somebody like Scott Hall did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the newest episode of Dark Side, but they did the one on Nick Gage
No, not yet.
just last night. I won't spoil it for you, but you do need to watch it. It
For
is
sure.
a good one. And I'm just going to spoil the tiniest little piece. Most people know that Nick Gage went to prison a couple times for bank robbery, for real. And it wasn't crazy like Batman, like showing up, and it wasn't anything like that.
Right.
But his deal was he chose to get into deathmatch wrestling. He saw ECW, he saw CZW, he watched Japanese stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, that's what I want to do. He did it so well that his body just, you can't do that forever.
Yeah.
And he did it hard. Well, of course he became addicted to drugs. They're going to.
Yeah, for sure.
But his story in particular does a great job of educating people on, I did a thing, I got hurt, I got addicted to drugs from the injury.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm addicted to drugs, which requires money. So now I have to keep doing the thing that injured me to afford the drugs. And it became this whole loop that kind of got reversed on him.
Yeah.
His episode was the best example that I've ever seen on kind of an expose show.
Yeah.
About how substance use and athletics go together like that.
Yeah, it's funny too. It almost reminds me of war a little bit. It's strange because, like, again, it's not supposed to be anti-wrestling by any means, but it almost at times it almost reminds me of Ken Burns documentary, especially the Vietnam one. I don't know if you've ever watched the Vietnam Ken Burns documentary.
But I know you're like a history buff.
Yeah, and Ken Burns is like one of the best filmmakers of all time. He does this series. Actually, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor do soundtrack for that particular that particular documentary. But however you feel about the government and whatnot, at the end of the day, I still feel just the worst for these Vietnam veterans because they literally got tangled up in something and things that they never should have seen, never should have been a part of, that was literally only kept around to maintain the war. And then when they got back, there's no plan, there's no recovery, there's no nothing. And, these vets are just traumatized for life. They're messed up for life, and same thing. Now, not to say it's just like wrestling, but it's strange how the guys believe in something and they have this belief in wrestling and they become part of it. And then all of a sudden, over time, their view and their life just changes completely. And their well-being changes and their mind changes. And, it's super important that people start paying attention to what these guys actually do for a living. And, and the risks that they take every single time they get into a ring, it is nothing to mess around with. One little thing and you're paralyzed or dead.
I like your comparison of wrestling to war in the fact that you get sold on a dream, or like sold on a, be a hero. Go be a hero.
Right.
You don't think about, what if I get shot? What if I lose a limb?
Yeah.
Most people don't realize what the actual VA system is like in this country.
Yeah.
I work in mental health, and so I've had a handful of people with war history who have PTSD from the military. Anybody like that who's had to deal with the VA and those benefits or go to hospitals. I'm not going to sit here and talk smack about doctors and nurses and people who work there. I am going to talk smack about the fact that the same entity that sent these poor people thousands of miles away to do God knows what, to God knows who, for God knows why, now we're going to bring them back and we're going to give them abysmal aftercare.
Yeah.
We're going to take their insurance. We're not going to pay them what we owe them. We're going to take away the college funds. Like, here's the dream. Go ruin your life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and that infamous interview with Piper, he said, when you come in, it's like, oh man, it's amazing. It's got this awesome entrance plan, but he's like, there's no exit plan. There is none. And he even knew it. He was like, I'm not going to collect pension until I hit 65. He's like, I'm not making 65. And he, that's terrible to be able to sit there 61. And go, yeah. He's like, I'm not making that. Like, let's be real. And that's pretty terrible to think about, that you're not going to have much time left here. And
I appreciate that about Roddy, though. I think you have to manage your expectations somewhat.
yeah,
People have asked, I've had conversations, this sounds a little dark and it's almost unrelated, but people have said, like, if you had cancer, would you do chemotherapy or would you die of cancer?
yeah,
And I don't know what you've looked into about it, but I'm a cancer person. I'm like, I will manage my expectations. I don't know when I'll die right now. It could be
yeah,
tomorrow, it could be 80 years. If a doctor looked at me and said, you're stage 4, you need chemo. And I said, how long do I have? I said, a year. That year would be insane, dude. I would have more sex and do more crazy shit. And like, that would be my life. That year is my life now. And I don't know. I think him being able to say, my body's ruined. We all know it. He knew what he was doing for extracurriculars and all that stuff. To be able to say, I'm not going to make it. It's dark, but
yeah,
it is realistic. And I mean, I think more people kind of need to be woke to the ugly realities
yeah.
to be able to
And
make
that's,
realistic, you know?
if there's one point we could just make throughout this entire conversation, it's that wrestlers need to start being taken care of straight up. And if you can't financially compensate them to the highest of your abilities, at least take care of them, be respectful of them, and be honest to them, because that's really
Be
who's
nice.
important. That's really who's important at the end of the day,
You know what
not
would
how
be
much
really
money you're
cool?
making. Or
Yeah. I've never heard of this before. I think it would be awesome. So let's imagine somehow in the next 2 or 3 years, let's imagine IPW reached like whatever, like fifth year ROH levels,
right,
2,000 people at every show, whatever, 4 shows, 6 shows a month. You pay people semi comfortably. You could pay some full time people.
yeah,
What I've never heard of, let's bring in a consultant every 6 months and teach people how to invest in a retirement 401k.
right,
Let's teach people how to pay these taxes as a contractor so they don't get turned upside down. Let's give them the skills to make their life work since they're helping us make the industry work right now.
yeah,
Yeah, I've never heard of any of that stuff existing, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. Of course, ideally, it'd be nice for businesses to just take care of their people, but not all businesses are at a level to be able to do it in that fashion. I don't know. There's a lot of creative ways to make it better for the workers. It'd
yeah.
be nice to see people do it.
Well, hopefully, the nonsense that's been happening, hopefully it comes to a screeching halt. Again, maybe the nonsense won't come to a screeching halt, but hopefully the fact that this has been happening is really waking some guys up, and they go, listen, just not deal with it anymore. We can trust that we're going to be taken care of by these dudes, and they just invest in those products. And hopefully the fans will start investing in those products because they know their quality. They're going to get an awesome show, and they won't be expecting any nonsense. Just go to a wrestling show and have fun.
Right. And you know what I like? And I just thought of this. I like that Tommy Vendetta banged the gong and said, follow me or not, but I'm done with this bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm getting back to the roots. This is almost similar to some of the pro wrestlers on WWE level saying, fuck all this, let's unionize.
Yeah.
It's similar on the same level. And people lose track of the fact that, like, Vince can say, if you want to be seen by millions of people, you're going to come work for me. And he has the ability to do that. Local promoters at 15 different federations in Detroit, Michigan, they need Tommy Vendetta.
Yeah.
They need Aaron O'Ryan. They need the Monroes. They need those people. Monroes and Vendetta don't need 15 feds.
Yeah, exactly.
You just said it. Like, they can control their destinies in independent wrestling, at least in this state.
Yeah.
By saying no to the wrong people and saying yes to the right ones. I just hope they do it.
Yeah, no doubt. So, well, we're looking forward to the future of Michigan wrestling. Hopefully things turn around. We start to see, we're going to continue to see huge shows in IPW. But yeah, it's good to be back into the swing of things and to get back to what we love doing. So
100%. I've heard
Oh
some
yeah.
cool rumors during the pandemic. You want to hear some of them?
Yeah, big time.
Okay. This is all IPW related stuff.
Oh my.
There's a rumor
All right.
that Zach Ibiza was abducted by aliens.
My God.
They didn't find any. They found like an anal probe hanging from a tree within walking distance of his house. It could have been
Oh.
anybody's, but he's missing. So I mean, who knows? I'll have my people look into it.
Okay, sounds good.
Another rumor is that Felix Morio, who you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
word has it, and I'm not casting any aspersions, and I'm just repeating what I've heard.
Yeah.
There's a real distinct possibility that he has a bloodline lineage in professional wrestling, and that there may be, like, it's almost like that. What was the last movie of the Lord of the Rings series, where the guy was like, "You have a destiny. You're supposed to take that crown, put it on your head. You are the royalty."
Yeah. I've
There's
been
a rumor
heard.
Felix Morio may be wrestling royalty. We just don't know it.
I've been hearing whispers about this too, and I'm generally curious what is going on, because there's been whispers, you know, and they like you said, they started off as unconfirmed rumors, and then all of a sudden it's like, and there's whispers, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. We can't specifically say anything because we don't even know anything yet. But
When you start hearing the same story from multiple sources, and those sources don't even know each other,
yeah,
there's something going on. And
just one fateful night. One fateful
okay,
night
I'm just
is
going to
all
tell you
it
what I
took.
heard. I'm going to tell you what I heard. And this is where I'm trying not to cast aspersions. I've had sex with my Lifetime franchise. I'm sure you have too. I hope.
Yeah, I did it a couple.
I don't need to know the details. We can talk about that later. I've heard that Felix Morio's mom had sex because Felix Morio exists.
Yes.
So I'm not calling her names or anything for having sex, okay? Certainly not calling her a hoe.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not calling her a hoe. But, you know, she slept with somebody.
Who knows? Who knows what we could even be alluding to there? It's so mysterious.
There have been a lot of attractive wrestlers over the years, franchise. How old is Felix? Like in his 30s?
Yeah, like if he was probably born in like the mid 80s, early mid 80s. So the height of professional wrestling in the 80s.
God, I mean, just think about it. His mom could have slipped. If I'm Felix Morio's mom, let me just give you a list of like people on my list. I like an adventure.
Right.
I'd probably go for the Bushwhackers, like as a team.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Two of them. They look experienced. I like fish, so like that's a possibility. Zeus was very attractive.
Oh yeah, Zeus. Yeah, big time.
Yep. Yeah, Big John Studd, handsome dude. The Killer Bees, they're both handsome.
Yeah.
Hexa, I don't know. I never considered Jim Duggan to be particularly attractive personally.
No, I mean, you know, teach their own.
You know, taste vary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like who from that wrestling era does Felix Morio, does he remind you of anybody physically? Like who could be his father?
I mean, if I was going to line it up with a 2x4, I'd have to say, man, it's tough. It's tough. Maybe a Big John Studd. I don't know. But Big John Studd was a beastly mammoth of a blow, you know. Felix Morio is not. He doesn't have that beastly body. So
no, he's pretty
I don't know. It's tough. The rumors are just spinning. I mean, IPW rumor mill is just all over the place. I mean, there's big time happenings in the work.
Well, what I do know is that the announcing team is somehow award-winning.
Yes.
For IPW.
Yes.
I don't know if we had an award-winning fact-finding committee, but we need to get one together. I want to get to the bottom of this Morio business. We need to move on with our lives. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the fans at home also want to know, you know, they're curious, like, you know, one rumor got started and then it just starts snowballing and, you know, who knows? Who knows what might be coming, you know, down the pathway for IPW, but, you know, it does give you a sense of encouragement that we find out, you know, you just got to love the country. It's like USA, 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 you know?
You know, it's funny that you just put it that way. I'm not super patriotic,
Yeah.
but you just saying USA reminded me. I just bought my bathing suit for the summer franchise.
Yeah.
The
Suit
top,
season.
the top looks like an American flag,
Oh,
and
nice.
the bottom is a giant pair of like blue underwear.
That's wild. I don't know. That might be something Felix Morial might be interested in too. Who knows?
Saying you can
But
borrow
yeah, IPW pool party, no doubt. So we'll have to find out, but I'm glad the podcast is back for sure.
Yeah,
We'll see what these rumors kick up.
One last thing before we go. This is the last rumor, I promise.
Yeah.
Big Ray Taurus.
Yeah.
Supposedly returned to IPW recently. I heard that there may be some whisperings as to the identity of Big Ray Taurus.
Man, that would be huge, literally, because Ray Taurus is almost like an apparition.
I know, right? It's like hard to imagine somebody being big enough to fill those shoes. Now, he wears a mask, so we may never know.
Yeah.
Here's what I heard. IPW may have had its largest signing to date. It's a globally known entity.
Man.
Do you remember a wrestler in WWE a handful of years ago? God, he had a lot of programs with people. He worked with Fit Finley for a while at one point. At one point, he was one of the considerations for an illegitimate child of Vince McMahon himself. I heard it might be Hornswoggle.
Man, that could be huge. The implications on that have never been bigger.
That's what I love about masked wrestlers. You never know until you get that mask off.
Seriously. I mean, you think about Hornswoggle and then, you know, the nearly 7 foot tall Ray Taurus, and you're like, the parallels are almost identical.
Yeah. Same shoe size, same inseam, same choke slam. Like,
unreal. This is some amazing rumors. You're going to just see some amazing content coming from IPW pretty soon here. I mean, this is insane.
Sky's the limit, man. Obviously.
No doubt. All right. Well, keep in touch. The Crucial Squared Circle is back. IPW is back. Michigan Wrestling is awesome, and so are their wrestlers, and we're incredibly honored to be a part of it. Much love for everybody out there who supports independent wrestling, who is an independent wrestler. If you're running a promotion, you're taking care of your dudes, you know what? Hats off to you. And we will be joining you again soon. We're going to have IPW Pandemonium debuting in a couple of days, and the Insider will follow with more rumors as they develop.
I can't wait to hear more rumors. I can't wait to start more rumors. Rumors are my favorite.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, much love. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and we will talk to you again soon. Deuces.
Oh.